Hello again. So today we're going to be looking at this lovely Moleskine A4 sketchbook, and this is primarily used as a sort of family memory book, if you know what I mean. So I'll do sketches in here of like holidays and days out and things like that. I should have really done a lot more in this one. It should be easily full by now. And now the idea is you're not doing every single day out, because some days you don't have time to sketch. No, you can see this is dated 2001, so you can see it's I probably filled about 15 pages, so it's certainly I've not done as much as I should have done. And but the idea behind it really is that you do use it sort of intermittently. So in the same way that you'll have a phone with you sometimes, and you'll be taking pictures as you go out, you can always bring those pictures home, and you can always do some drawing when you get home and just fill the spread in the sketchbook. You don't have to do every single trip, of course. It's really just for sort of highlights, or just really when you feel like it. I mean, art is a funny one, and I've done quite a few videos now for this channel, and you don't want it to feel like an obligation, because I actually think sometimes obligations do tend to stifle creativity. So it's really a fine line. I mean, I could do videos for this channel, say, that would get a lot more traffic than the ones that I do, but I do the videos that I enjoy, because otherwise I feel it's ultimately work, and to be brutally honest, it's very poorly paid work. So I might as well be actually just capturing stuff that I really enjoy, and then it doesn't really feel like work. So anyway, this is Yorkshire Sculpture Park. A day out there. Yeah, a really interesting place. It's really quite. Some of these places will mean nothing to most people, because they are places that are more personal to us. And there's my little boy climbing on a little sculpture. This is a friend's house. It's a beautiful spot, and it's quite special for us. We've spent a lot of time there, and the kids roam free and get up to all sorts of mischief. And most people who know me will probably know where that is. This is a cottage that we stayed at in Cornwall, and we stayed there twice, actually. It's a really nice cosy cottage in Flushing. It's really nice, and you can see here how I've spread just a picture across the top of the whole room. And then this is a very typical old quay in Cornwall. The rocks tend to be orientated vertically, and then there's a capstone on top, and there's some wonderful yellow lichen and barnacles and all sorts of textures, and you can see how the quay actually looks there. I think that's Flushing again. I think that's Flushing Beach, a bit further down the estuary from the harbour. So you sort of get the idea with these. I'm not sure I show pretty much all of this. Maybe I am showing more of it. This is a walk in a local valley to us, the Riverlane Valley. As you can see here, what I'm pointing to there, I'm not afraid to actually just have a play as well. I mean, sketchbooks, yeah, they are pretty precious things, and I'm sure they will be cherished, hopefully by the next generation, and looked at occasionally. But I'm not, I'm not of the mindset that they have to somehow be precious or particularly well executed or anything like that, because quite frankly, it takes the fun out of it. So yes, I'm sure you'll all remember a time not so long ago when our back gardens and our backyards were the only places we could visit and play in. And it's funny how a little sketch like this just remind me of not so much my back garden, but sitting there and doing the sketch on that day. This is a lovely weekend away with a couple of friends. A walk in the peaks. You can see I do love driving a tractor, and I've even gone to the trouble of putting a little bit of information there about the tractor, because I'm a nerd. And this is a really nice bit of the walk, where the lads wanted to tramp up there, and I said, I'll stay here and do a sketch. You get to the top and then come back. And yeah, it was nice. That's Hen's Cloud, which for any of you keen walkers is new. It's a place called the Roaches on the west side of the Peak District. So this is a little day out that we had, seeing some family in Sunderland. And again, here I've done some really quick, daft sketches. Nothing. There's my boy in front of one of the little cobble fishing boats, and I've done some close-ups here of some of these shells and a bit of pottery that we found on the beach. Yeah. Again, it shows that you don't have to do a lot of detail. You don't have to get really carried away. I mean, not the shells. The shells are quite detailed, but if you look at this sketch of the beach, it's pretty rough. Yeah, you can be pretty loose about it. And this is a sketch meet-up with some friends at Brimham Rocks. I'm sorry about this camera work zooming around all over the place. And yeah, we had a holiday of a couple last year, was it? In Norfolk. Norfolk, and lots of lovely boat-related art was sketched. Some of this was done in situ, and some of it was done at the Holiday Cottage afterwards, and a little bit of it, I think when I got home even. It's not. That's the nice thing about these kind of sketches is, this is the Tank Museum, which randomly my 5-year-old daughter absolutely loved, even though she didn't actually realise the sort of the connotations of most of the machines are ultimately for. She loved the big green machines with tracks anyway, and they are a lot of fun to draw. An awful lot of fun, simple geometric shapes. And this is a little sculpture exhibition at Chatsworth House, again in the Peak District. And some more time at Holmfirth at our friend's house. And obviously after, there's a couple more pages, and then I'm going to just do a little sketch, an additional sketch in here. This is a place we go to a lot. It's Bolsover Castle. It's very beautiful, and the kids do love running around. It's loads of space, loads of rooms to explore. It's got stables and all sorts, and a lot of original stuff, hand-painted wood panelling and things like that. It's pretty cool. So this is probably one of the ones that took the most time. This is Riverlane Valley, near where we live, and this was just a random day out walking. But I did take quite a lot of time to include quite a lot of detail. It was one of those days when I got home, I did this sketch and I got a little bit engrossed. It was nice though. You can see the trees in the background there have just been washed in with watercolor. I've not used any line work, and that makes it nice and sort of diffuse. And then the trees in the foreground have more line, more paint on, more dabs, details, dots, etc. And the kids playing by the water's edge with the doggy. They're lovely, these. They're really cool. And there's me with them. So yeah, this was last year, about, and some more trips. Another country house visit to Broadsworth Hall. There's the blue one. This is quite acidic. Some of these, this is again Yorkshire Sculpture Park, but these haven't really been even painted in much. We've got a little camping trip with some friends here, and there's the old bell tent, which was put away after that trip, and the mice got to it, so it's got a few holes in now. We have to think about what we're going to do with that. Some time away seeing some friends at a cottage. Well, it's hardly a cottage, a house. Somewhere in the Cotswolds, I believe. It was a really fun weekend, seeing some of my wife's old uni friends, or our friends, of course. Yeah, just little cute cars, and the kids playing in their back garden. Bottom Marlow, Cambridgeshire. Some other different days out. We've got Conisbrough Castle, Leeds Armouries with the kids. That was a fun day. And the Hepworth Gallery. It's like a who's who of cool places to go with kids that's free in Yorkshire. And this was like a very old factory that we found in the Peak District. So yeah, we'll go and do this this sketch of Bolsover. Now, one of the nice things about using a sketchbook, particularly when it's A4, is you can be quite big and you can be quite bold. There's always this sort of temptation of being, worried if you make mistakes or things go wrong, particularly when you're going straight in with ink. But in my experience, if you just commit to it, the more you do it, the less likelihood there is of it going wrong. And also, before you start to you tend to take a little bit longer to just think about the drawing before you sort of commit to it. So this is a gateway at Bolsover. It's very heavily carved. So again, regular viewers will know that I'm using my Opus 88 fountain pen here, which is one of my favourites. I've recently converted this to a flex nib from FP pens. I got the nib and the holder and everything from America. I'm so exotic. Unfortunately, it doesn't really work very well. I think it needs more flow. So I'm gonna take it apart, have a bit of a think about whether I can modify it, or I've had this problem before, and what I've done is I've modified the feed, and then it's got too wet and dribbles everywhere. Now I know this is a common complaint with fountain pens and with flex nibs, but I might have a little play with it and see what I can do. But in the meantime, I'm going to probably just convert it back, the Opus back to the normal nib, because it's such a regular beast. It's such a reliable and fun pen to sketch with. It's so big, and I've got big hands, so actually it's nice to have a pen that fits my hand. So as you can see here, I'm sketching in some of this stonework detail. There's no reference drawing for this because, well, there is somewhere on my phone, but I'm not going to include it because there's no point. You can Google Bolsover Castle if you want and probably find this gateway, but it's basically one of the entrance, I think, into the riding stables. It's pretty highly ornamented, and yeah, you can lose yourself in this kind of brickwork. So really fundamentally, I mean, what do you think the difference is between a family sketchbook of days out and a lot of pictures, a lot of photos on a phone? I mean, I guess the photos on the phone will, how will those be passed down? We don't know yet, really, because we're not in the situation necessarily where there's a generation of children. We are going to be soon, whose whole childhoods are going to be either on an iCloud or on some laptop or backed up somewhere. How we archive our memories digitally it's going to be an interesting one. And certainly, I think when I've shuffled off this mortal coil, if I leave a few sketchbooks behind with some nice pictures that'll mean something to the kids, I don't know, I just find that really reassuring somehow. And I don't think it's morbid in the sense of like you're doing these as some kind of any weird legacy, because it's just a pleasure to do them. But I just think there's something somehow more tactile and it feels more archival in a traditional sense, if that makes sense. I know it's not vellum, but it feels like this is something which you will be able to open in 100 years and the colours will still be fresh. And yeah, it's a really funny one. I just treasure sketchbooks. My problem is really I've got too many, and I need to find a way of either displaying them in a nice way so that I can access them regularly and sort of flick through them, or actually put them into deep storage. But my worry is then if they go into a box in the attic or the basement or whatever, there's a chance of them getting damaged. But it's also they disappear like all the other crap that's in the basement, or whereas actually it would be nice to have them on the shelf and I could pull them down occasionally and sort of flick through them. So this is one of the cheap food fountain pens, FUDE pens that I have off. I bought off Amazon or something, and they're not expensive. But I think that one has run out of ink. So what I'm doing is I'm just using the Opus 88, and instead of filling it up full of ink and being lazy, and just using that to double over some of the lines, which actually looks better because you don't want it all to be too thick. Otherwise, it just loses a little bit of you need a bit of refinement in line widths rather than them all being chunky. That said, obviously, I've just gone and done that, so shows you what I know. So we're away to hairdry this, and then I think we're going to have a play with this brand new set of watercolor paints. Now, these are from Rembrandt, which is a Royal Talents brand, and I've not really used these before. So they have been semi-gifted to my daughter because they're her first set of watercolors, which I don't think she realizes how lucky they are because they're not cheap, but they are beautiful paints. They activate super quick. I really like the bright tones. I have to get a bit used to the bright tones because the set that I use are probably more muted. I think this is an interesting example of actually how I'm making a mess here. Right? Look, I think that might be water ink splodged on there. Yeah, when you're building up layers with watercolor, because obviously it's a semi-opaque, transparent, etc. media, sometimes you can shortcut stuff. You can just sort of bash in a bit here, bash a bit there. Do it with colours as well. If you can add slightly lighter or darker colours, as well as tones and densities of pigment and things, you can really tell the story of a like a variegated or brickwork that's got different tones. But actually, there's no substitute for layers. There is no substitute for actually just taking your time and putting in many, many, many layers. And then it will look rich and right, if you know what I mean. Obviously, I'm hair drying again here. I'm obsessed with it. Okay, there's a lot more detail to put in here, a lot more shadows and things like that. I've got a very thin brush here, and I'm using it just to. I'm using a bit of the dark brown. I think that's a burnt umber, and a little bit of the Payne's grey actually, which I don't ever have grey on my palette, my Daniel Smith set that I use the most, because I just mix my own greys. I just use Van Dyke brown and a little bit of blue, and I will mix my own greys, but I'm going for a bit of a shortcut here and using the Payne's grey. Now, truth be told, this door in reality is black. It's very dark, but I'm not choosing to paint it as black in this. What you might not have realised is my little boy stood in front of this door on his big 3-year-old mad mop of hair. So because he's only little and I want to draw attention to him, even though I don't like necessarily the drawing that I've done of him, it's a little bit abstract, but I'll do him in bright colours, otherwise you just won't notice him, he'll get lost. So that's the thought behind that one. Oh, and the magic of television or YouTube. So the other scene that I did on the other side is the view of the main sort of keep at Bolsover, and there's a statue of a very pleasurably proportioned female. She's got a fine booty, and I believe that's the term the kids use for her bottom, as we say in Britain. I am obviously flushing with embarrassment now as I said that, because I am British, of course. We don't do anything. We don't normally talk about bottoms on the television or on the YouTube. Anyway, I'm distracted by the thought of bottoms now. So yeah, building up, there's a statue. It's more like a fountain, a sort of a recessed fountain thing. And then behind it is the keep. And again, I'm just going cheating here by using a little bit of pencil just to get the proportions vaguely right. For the sake of variety, I'm obviously using a fine liner here just to prove that I do own them. I do like sketching with fine liners. I do. I don't wish them any specific harm, but I just find that they're just not as. I don't enjoy them quite as much as fountain pens. I find the line width is more uniform, and they are certainly better behaved. They flow. They definitely flow better in terms of, they don't do big splots of ink. They're not naughty like fountain pens are, but I think that's the reason why I like fountain pens, because they're a bit chaotic, a bit like me, really. Okay, so we're nearly towards the end of this. There's only about 2-3 minutes left of this little sketch to do. Obviously, this is sped up 5 times, so I'm taking my time on these. I'm chatting with the kids, I think, while I'm doing it. As you can see, there's a little bit of perspective in this tower. It's a bit wider at the bottom than it is at the top, but it is a massive tower. And I want to try and show some sense of the sort of scale of the thing. I seem to remember when I sketched this, I did have a bit of a problem with some of the more tricky bits of the sort of castle. That typical castle bit at the top that sort of goes up and down. I'm not sure whether it's called corbelling or what it's actually called, but yeah, it didn't quite look right. But again, this is a classic example of who knows, unless you are working at that building, you have no idea about how many windows there are there. And when I look at this now, I don't think about necessarily, that window's in the wrong place. I just think, it's Bolsover. There's the lady with the bum. Yeah. And I think about all the fabulous times we've had there with the kids over the years. I know when my daughter was really small and had just started walking and running and shouting, and we used to go here all the time, just me and her, when I had a day off during the week with her. And we'd go running around the Windy Castle, as she called it. It was called the Windy Castle because we went there once and we stepped through one of the curtain walls, and it's a big open window that obviously would have had a huge door in it. And she stepped out onto this balcony, and it was so windy she got blown right back through the building and back onto the lawn at the other side of the castle. She was literally blown probably about 10 metres, and she was about 2. And yeah, I mean, obviously completely safe, but very funny. So henceforth, it's always been the Windy Castle. So obviously, because I've been using the fine liner, that was a 0.5 Unipin fine liner. The fountain pen, despite being an extra fine nib, is still a good chunk thicker than the fine liner. So I can use that to sort of define the perimeters of those shapes there. It's always the nicest bit of the sketch for me when you start putting slightly thicker lines around things. I think it starts to make a lot more sense. I don't really understand. I think it's conditioning on my part, because I know a lot of artists don't do that, and I don't miss it necessarily in their work anyway. So there you go. So there is an extra bit here of me just adding some a little bit of colour to this. So I'm using the same technique again. I'm doing a bit of pre-shadow there. A lot of this is kind of mixed a little bit wet in wet. It's not very detailed, if you know what I mean. It's just kind of quite loose. And I'm not really au fait with the greens of this palette, so instead of mixing my own, I used just one that was in there that was quite sort of simpatico, really, with the blue in the sky. I quite like that. I'm not quite sure what I would describe it. It's a sort of bottle green. I'm sure there's a term for it. But there we go. So there's a little a little extra demo for you. I'm not quite sure if you'd find any of that useful or not. I like the sketch. I think it's pretty cool. Another one of Bolsover, and it really just make me realise and remind me that I need to get my finger out and do more, because they are really lovely. And yeah. So there you go. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for thanks for stopping by, and we'll see you again. And you should start with these. It's good fun. All right then. Ta-ra.